Welcome to your weekly program, BelAhdan, a show with an accent for those without one. We'll hear about the Iranian deal, the nuclear agreement between 6 nations and Iran or Iran. A lot of opposition, a lot of discussion, debate about the validity, about the Obama's administration's legacy, the Iranian deal. We have a very special guest here, Dr. Beeman from University of Minnesota. He's always following events in Iran and has been writing books about the Iranian-American relationship. Welcome to BelAhdan, Dr. Beeman.
Thank you so much.
Now it's called the Iranian deal. What? It's not an American deal?
Actually, it's a deal that is taking place between Iran and the P5+1 nations,
okay.
6 nations.
Okay.
This is the United States, Great Britain, France, Germany,
Russia,
and China. Mm-hmm. So it's important that we understand that this is not just a deal between the United States and Iran. And when you talk to the U.S. Congress, you would get the idea that the United States and Iran are the only people that are involved in this.
Not only that, you think it's only between Obama and the Ayatollah. I mean, that's how they reduce it.
That's been reduced to a very personalized kind of situation. And it is very important for Americans to understand that the agreement has been signed and that the other nations that are involved with the agreement have really accepted it, and they are going to remove the European sanctions against Iran, and the United Nations is going to remove the UN sanctions against Iran. So if the United States doesn't ratify the agreement, what will happen is that only the unilateral sanctions against Iran from the United States are going to still be operative. And as we know, that is not going to be very effective in getting Iran to change anything. So
what's the legality of it? What's the framework? I know United Nations is involved too.
Well, this is not a treaty. It is a joint agreement between these nations, and it's completely within the purview of the President of the United States to sign these agreements. But if you'll remember, Congress imposed a
sanction.
Congress imposed the right to review this agreement.
I see.
In March, after the framework for the agreement was established, and President Obama felt that he had to acquiesce in letting Congress have review power. Normally, there would be no congressional review power. This is a very special situation.
This is an executive prerogative.
Because the executive branch conducts diplomacy.
Yeah.
And because it's not a treaty, it doesn't require congressional approval in order to have a treaty. It is an agreement.
So what was the thinking for Obama to acquiesce?
Well, I don't know. I think that he felt that he was safe in acquiescing to Congress to allowing the review to go forward, and it was something that was likely to be much more extreme if he hadn't agreed to let this happen, because there were people in Congress who wanted immediately to tie all kinds of things that had nothing to do with the agreement to the agreement. For instance, Marco Rubio, from Florida, wanted to require Iran to recognize Israel, for instance, when it's quite unusual because, for instance, Saudi Arabia, our great ally in the Persian Gulf, does not recognize Israel.
So he's putting a wedge there.
But the problem is that we are not negotiating this agreement. The agreement has been negotiated already.
Signed.
Signed and agreed upon. So the idea that we could somehow add other things into the agreement is really ridiculous, and it shows that the people in Congress who want to do this, either they have no idea about how these matters work, or they're purposely being perverse in saying that they want things that can't be obtained.
All they still living in the Cold War and still living in that. I mean, American does not have that clout anymore.
That's right. Of course, we don't. Well, we think we have clout, but every time in the last couple of decades that we've tried to exercise our power militarily, it hasn't turned out well.
To say the least.
To say the least. So this is actually one of the great diplomatic achievements of the 21st century.
What are they opposing? If something, here is one of the axes of evil, supposedly, and the treatment, or what we call it now, the deal, it's agreement. The agreement not to limits the ability of the Iranian to develop a nuclear bomb, at least for 10 years or so.
Right. Well, the congressional opponents and also AIPAC, who has a $25 million media campaign to try to defeat this bill with the public, are calling for something that is actually impossible. What they would like is to see Iran's nuclear program, it's completely eliminated and dismantled.
Peaceful and...
Right, peaceful, non-peaceful, energy,
technology itself gone.
Technology itself gone. This cannot happen. And the reason it can't happen is because Iran and the United States are signatories to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. And in there's 190 other nations, in fact, practically every nation on earth, except for Israel, Pakistan, India, North Korea, and South Sudan. New nation that hasn't ratified the treaty yet. But the other nations of the world, all of them, have ratified this treaty, and the treaty provides that non-nuclear weapons nations, that is everyone except the United States, Britain, France, China, and Russia, will have the inalienable right to peaceful nuclear development. Moreover, it requires the nuclear weapons nations, that is the United States and the other four, to protect that right. So the United States is required to protect Iran's right to peaceful nuclear development. That treaty was signed
by law.
By law.
By the law.
That treaty was signed in 1970, and unless Iran voluntarily gives up its peaceful nuclear program, it can't be forced to do so. So it's
out of Obama's, negotiation cards.
Well, this is the framework in which the negotiations in Vienna and the framework negotiations in Lausanne took place. So what Congress calling for complete elimination of Iran's nuclear program is not possible. So it really makes me wonder on what basis they really are opposing this
Could
event.
Could it be the fact they know we cannot really, in all practicality, and we cannot really have a viable nuclear treaty with Iranian or anybody else in the area without dealing with what the Israelis are doing? How could you impose those treaties on those countries and then you leaving the only player, the only one who will have the nuclear bomb, or hundreds of them, whatever, be Israel?
Well, that's of course what Israel wants, and Israel is not a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation
Treaty. Let them sign it.
And well, that's what some people have said. Let Israel sign
the
treaty.
What a concept!
Exactly, and if Israel signs the treaty, then they will have nuclear inspectors on the ground in Israel looking at their nuclear facilities, just like Iran has. But Israel doesn't want to do that, but they do want to restrict Iran's ability to have any kind of nuclear energy.
But everybody knows that the Israelis have nuclear bomb, and how many? What would be the new thing that an inspector will expose?
Well,
we already know the elephant in the room.
Actually, we know that Israel has nuclear weapons. We don't know how many exactly. The estimate is about 200. Some people say as high as 250. Some people say as low as 100. We don't know. We don't know where they are.
Does it make any difference after a 50 bomb?
I think that's right.
But 200, 500, doesn't matter. No, you have more than 3. That's
exactly.
Yeah.
But remember that the treaty is the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, and Article 6 of that treaty requires all nations who are involved with nuclear weapons manufacture to reduce their nuclear arsenal. So Israel would be required also to reduce its arsenal. The other nations have not actually observed this very well.
Well, this is all built on like perception of something is not there. I don't know what the Israelis are afraid of or what the Congress is afraid of.
Well, what's important to understand is that actually there is no evidence anywhere at all that Iran has a nuclear weapons program or ever had one or will have one in the future. No intelligence agency on the entire planet has been able to find any evidence that such a program exists. And so Iran in Vienna agreed not to do something that it never was doing and never intended to do.
And she's getting a break.
Exactly right. Very easy to agree to something like that. Yeah, so I think actually if we take a look behind the scenes, we get talking about nuclear weapons, but the truth is that I think that the real problem here is that the United States started this question about Iran manufacturing nuclear weapons when the United States openly wanted to have regime change in Iran. And they wanted this nuclear weapons kind of excuse to try to sell and justify this to the American public. Once the Bush administration was out of office, then the Obama administration was saddled with this very old claim.
Legacy.
With this legacy. And they had to find some way to get rid of this legacy and also to try to restore 40 years of estrangement between Iran and the United States. That's it's ridiculous. Iran, it's only Iran and North Korea in the entire world now that we've had
Syria.
Well, yeah. Well, now that
Syria's
we've had
gone.
That's right, Syria too. But now that we've had restored relations with Cuba, Iran is the country with which we've had the longest period of non-relations of any nation in the world, and it makes absolutely no sense. 80 million people in a strategic area, progressive, intelligent population, pro-American population, and we don't have diplomatic relations. So that makes no sense at all.
It outlived its whatever usefulness. I mean, if it used to be rhetoric and a lot of people needs an evil.
Sure,
I mean, we don't need evils anymore. We have terrorism. We have a lot of other. But what is Congress after? What are they after? You know, is this if Obama was Bush or was a Republican president, would the Republican will be opposing that deal?
I don't know. I mean, obviously, President Nixon, who was a Republican, opened the relations with China.
Yeah.
And that was actually, there was a lot of criticism on the part of other Republicans. But in the end, we went along with it, and you know what happened as a result. The Chinese economy really spurred the entire world into an economic boom.
You're saving
and it continues.
Capitalism.
Absolutely. And the Chinese... the opening to China was a wonderful thing for the entire world. There are some disadvantages too, some problems as well. But I have a challenge to some of my students, and that is to go into Walmart and find one item that's not made in China. So a lot of our...
It's a long assignment, isn't it?
It's a long assignment.
For the whole semester.
Exactly. But what I think really is happening is that the United States and especially Israel do not want Iran to become powerful in the region. They don't want Iran to have to take what would be a normal role in the region for a country that large in such a strategic location. And they know that in the aftermath of this, the United States and Iran may resume some kind of relations. Israel does not want the United States and Iran to become close.
Isn't that what the problem is in the Middle East? All this war, sectarian countries, people, was because we do not have two opposing power that
simply kowtowing to a foreign power, to Israel,
I see.
And paying attention to Netanyahu rather than paying attention to American interests.
That's very interesting. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Beeman from University of Minnesota, talking about the Iranian deal or the agreement between 6 nations and 1 nation.